maraming salamat po, Yusek Ernesto Chica Lolina, Sir, PVAO Administrator, at sa ating pong Deputy Administrator, General Raul Caballes, at sa ating pong PVAO GAD Coordinator, Dr. Pilar Ibarra, and to all the pangkat PVA, ngayong umaga. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Good morning. Thank you very much, sir, for inviting me to be your guest of honor this morning during your flag raising ceremony, and also to celebrate Women's Month. We had our opening of the Women's Month in Congress last week, and I was also the speaker in that flag raising ceremony because I am the chairperson of the Committee on Women and Gender Equality in Congress. So, I'm tamang-tama na inimbitahan niyo ako ngayong Women's Month. March is declared as the National Women's Month, and it's timely, of course, that we raise awareness on women and gender empowerment during this month, but not only during this month, but continuously during the entire year. Over a century ago, women's oppression and inequality spurred women to be vocal and active in campaigning for change. In 1908, about 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding for better work conditions, shorter working hours, higher pay, and voting rights. Since then, gender issues have been a primary agenda of worldwide development, resulting to significant commitments from the international community to advance and promote women's rights and gender equality. And that's why there was the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women that was forged and signed because it all started from that 15,000 women who marched through New York City demanding for their rights. The Philippines has made great advancement on the promotion of gender equality and women empowerment. In terms of education and health, we were able to close the gender gap, and among the ASEAN countries, the Philippines is the only country that ratified the Magna Carta of Women. Tayo lang po sa ASEAN ang may Magna Carta of Women, which protects and promotes Filipino women's human rights and institutionalizes gender concerns in the mainstream development process. However, the campaign for women and gender empowerment has not ended because despite the existence of significant legislative measures for women, the inequality among men and women and persons with unconventional gender orientation still exists right now, whether at home, at school, at work, and in society in general. Today, we continue to encourage more women to stand up for their rights and to let their voices be heard, not just to be a parody of men, but to be women with the same human rights. Every woman has the same human rights that deserves to be treated co-equal and with utmost dignity. And so too, every member of the LGBT has the same human rights. Their rights are not diminished. Our rights are not diminished by granting them rights in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that's why we have come up with a bill that was mentioned by Yusek earlier, the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity or Expression Equality Act, which seeks to protect the rights of LGBTs. Equality and dignity are closely related, that it imposes a legal obligation to the state to safeguard the human rights of every human person, regardless of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Borrowing from the words of Hillary Clinton, let it be that human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights once and for all. Women and gender empowerment is not a simple participation or integration in the workforce or membership in a community, but generous involvement at work and significant contribution with a sense of worth and dignity in the community. Women and gender empowerment will not suffice without addressing the marginalization of women and unconventional gender that is rooted in the structure of gender bias, class, and race. As the representative of a workers' party list, the DIWA Partylist, it is always my advocacy to advance the welfare of not only our workers, but also of women workers. In the 17th Congress, we support significant laws on women and gender empowerment, such as mentioned earlier, the 100-day maternity leave bill, which gives a longer maternity leave to working mothers. So from the 60 and 78 days for normal and cesarean, now, well, we're proposing it's 100 days in Congress, because in Senate, they already approved it on third reading, it's 120 days. And in Congress, actually, it's 100 days, so it's lower. But if ever we pass it on third reading, it will be going through bicameral conference, and will accept, if ever will adopt the 120-day proposal of the Senate. So it will be higher. But right now, the status of that is it's still for plenary debate, because there are still 5 people who are listed to interpellate me for the bill. What I'm trying to explain to them, and I guess makinabang na rin kayo ngayong umaga, is that their fears are actually unfounded in terms of empirical data in studies conducted in other countries that have implemented a similar or higher number of maternal or parental leave. In California, for example, that implemented in 2004 98-day maternity leave, which is just 2 days shy from 100 days, because 98 days is the requirement of the Convention of Working Women, the UN Convention of Working Women. They recommend 98 days. So 98 lang talaga yung requirement. And when California, the state of California implemented that maternity leave, they conducted study 10 years after, which was in 2014, kung ano yung effects nung pagkakaroon ng maternity leave sa employer. So, ang lumabas sa study nila is 86% of employers said that there was a positive change in terms of work attitude and productivity, and 91% said that there were no changes in cost. Kasi yun yung pinaka-inaalala ng mga employer na ako, mas gagastos ako kasi mag-hire ako ng reliever, magte-train ako ng mga reliever, magkaka-loss in productivity kasi mawawala yung mga kababaihan. Sabay-sabay sila mawawala, na pag sabay-sabay sila nagbuntis, sabay-sabay sila mawawala. Sa bagay, kung buntis, minsan nagwawala din tayo. So sabay-sabay silang mawawala at magkakaroon ng loss of productivity. Pinakita ko sa kanila na dito sa records natin sa Pilipinas, una pinakita ko sa public sector, at pati na rin sa private sector, kumuha ako ng records from Dole, na hindi naman sabay-sabay nagli-leave yung mga babae. Kasi katunayan, less than 2% lang ang nagli-leave, which means that sa amin, sa Kongreso, 3,000 employees kami. Ang nagli-leave lang dyan, patatlo-tatlo lang at a time. So, hindi naman nakikripple yung workforce, hindi naman yung katulad po dito siguro sa PVAO. Ano ho ba yung ninyo, statistics nyo ng mga nagli-leave? Kung ano ba, sabay-sabay ba nagli-leave lahat ng kababayan? Hindi naman sabay-sabay talaga. So, it's very unrealistic yung fears ng mga nag-oppose po. Pagdating naman sa SSS, 1 year yung i-decrease ng fund life ng SSS. Kaya hindi po to that significant. Kumbaga, magagawa ng paraan ng proper investment at ng better collection ng SSS yung ganitong kind of problema. Pero, ano naman yung benefits na maidudulot ng maternity leave? Parati ko nga sinasabi na hindi ko tinutulak ito para lamang sa mga kababaihan, para lamang sa mga nanay tulad ko, kung hindi, para sa mga babies, para sa mga children natin. Kasi, alam nyo ba na ang main reason kung bakit nagsastop mag-breastfeed ang mga mothers ay dahil sa kailangan nilang bumalik sa trabaho. Yun talaga yung main reason. Pero, ang breastfeeding ay ang gold standard ng nutrition na nabibigay sa babies. Alam nyo ba na ang age from conception until 2 years old ng mga bata, yan ang pinaka-crucial na panahon sa buhay ng kahit sinong tao. Dahil sa yung birth to 2 years na yan, dyan na-form yung future ng bata in terms of health, intelligence, yung IQ nila, and physical development. So yung physiological makeup nila, kung gaano katangkad yung itatangkad nila, na-form na yan lahat, na-determine na yan lahat from birth to 2 years. Kaya yung nutrients na kukuha ng bata from birth to 2 years, pinaka-importante. Kaya nga nire-recommend ng WHO, kailangan hanggang 2 years mag-breastfeed eh. Ako ngayon, yung baby ko 1 year, 6 months, nag-breastfeed pa rin ako. Malapit na ako sa finish line. Kaya ako sinasabi to, kasi tayo, Pilipinas, tayo yung isa sa may pinakamababang maternity leave. Alam nyo ba yun sa Southeast Asia? At makikita nyo na yung kakabit doon sa ano na yun, statistic, tayo din yung isa sa may pinakamataas na malnutrition rate sa mga counterparts natin, which is Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, tapos Vietnam. Tayo yung Vietnam, 180 days ang maternity leave nila, 6 months. Tayo yung may taas na malnutrition. Kaya rin among yung mga minention ko, Vietnam yung may pinakamababang malnutrition rate. Kasi proportional yan. So tayo yung may pinakamataas na malnutrition rate. Tayo yung may pinakamataas na stunting. Sabihin, hindi tumatangkad, maliliit tayo. Stunting. Tayo yung may pinakamataas na infant mortality rate. Bakit? Kasi hindi nga healthy yung babies eh. So pag nagkakasakit sila within birth to 2 years, namamatay sila, diarrhea, pneumonia, namamatay. Kaya importante itong maternity leave law. Hindi lang para sa mga mommy na makarecover, kundi para sa mga bata. Nasa-spell nito kung ano, hanggang gaano layo yung mararating nila in the future eh. Dahil sa yung IQ nila, na-form na eh, dyan sa birth to 2 years eh. So kung hindi sila napakain na mabuti na alagaan ng nanay nila na breastfeed, hindi na tataas yung IQ nila. Kumbaga, babawiin na lang nila sa sipag kasi hanggang doon na lang yung IQ. Pero kaya nating baguhin to. We can invest in our children by approving the maternity leave law among other bills na tinutulak ko. At yung isa nga is yung first 1,000 days na comprehensive na bill na tumututok sa pag-aalaga sa nanay at saka sa baby from conception to birth. So, ang dami kong sinabi, pero pinapaliwanag ko lang kasi gusto kong maintindihan ng lahat kung bakit ko tinutulak to. Para to sa mga anak natin, sa kinabukasan din ng bansa natin. Dahil ang development ng bansa ay nakadepende din sa development ng mga tao sa bansang yun, human development. Another legislative measure na akin po pinopromote ay, binanggit ko kanina, gender equality sa Anti-Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity or Expression Equality Act. This proposed measure addresses discriminatory practices based on sexual orientation and gender identity relating to employment in public and private sector, admission in school, disciplinary sanctions, and access to public facilities, to private and public mental and health services, and self-organization. And of course, it also addresses harassment. With this bill, we hope to address the gaps that hinder the fullness of gender equality in our society. The SOGI bill is already approved in the committee level and is now scheduled for plenary consideration. In fact, tomorrow ko siya isa-sponsor sa plenary. To this day, women remain to be a minority on various decision-making aspects in marriage and family relations. This proves the existing inequality between the rights of the husband and the father, the husband or the father and the wife of the mother. Under the family code, alam niyo ba na kapag may disagreement between the husband and the wife in terms of parental authority, in terms of the management of the conjugal or absolute community property, ang decision ng husband ang mananaig. Pero siguro iba dito matutuwa, pero hindi dapat ganoon kasi 'di ba, equal naman ang men and women, equal ang husband and wife. Kaya kung may disagreement at talagang hindi talaga magkasundo, siguro dapat dadaan yun through the proper legal channels na magkakaroon ng siguro maglulupon, hindi siguro, hindi nasabi lang, maglulupon muna, and then kung hindi na ng lupon, saka mag-arbitration, magkukorte. So yun po dapat. Pending po yun ngayon sa committee. In addition, we also support other bills that uphold women's rights, namely strengthening the provisions of the anti-rape law, the Magna Carta of Workers in Informal Economy, and the BPO Workers Act, among others. Through our collective efforts, we endeavor to bring about change that serves as catalyst to evolve the conditions of our societal norms and drive cultural advancements to pave way to more opportunities for women to be active members of their respective communities and valuable partners in nation building. change that will recognize the significant roles of women in our society. In the end, we should recognize that the story of every woman's struggle for equality belongs to every human person, including men. Every man that values human rights for all. Let me close with the words from the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. Thank you very much, and may you have a meaningful week.